Hey guys, Jason here at Cooperative Motorworks and Motorhome Rehab Ranch. Today I'm going to talk about FiTech options that we currently use with the GMC Motorhome. So I've got in front of me two different throttle bodies that we've used so far for the GMC Motorhome. I have the Go Street 400. This is FiTech's original throttle body. As far as I know, this is the first one that they ever put out. Still a great unit. We still have a few that are using this. We are currently switching over to the classic 550 for all future builds. We kind of have some preferences because of the way this is designed. This is a later model. They, probably used everything that they learned in making this one and made some changes that we think are beneficial for the motorhome. So we have, this is, what we like to use. And I'll kind of go over some of the differences between the Go Street 400 and the classic 550 black. And it's not just the color that, I like better, but yeah, there's a few different options. So first thing you can see, you probably, if you have one of these, if you were originally outfitted with one of these, it probably came with this older controller. It's still a touch screen, and it's got a little joystick on it that we'll zoom in on later, that you can navigate with, and you can push down on it as a button. But this controller had some issues, and luckily there's an upgrade option. You can go to the new unit with the old, so it's completely compatible backwards. If that's something that you're interested in, we can order those for you, and you can replace that unit. If you're getting one now, whether you get either model, any of the models, they come with this new bigger screen, better keypad, better setup. And this one doesn't have the memory card that pops out, this little SD card. That gave us a few problems just because of like humidity and stuff. Sometimes it just wouldn't read the card properly. So that is an option if you want to upgrade or whatever. But everybody pretty much likes this new controller a lot better. Little size comparison, quite a bit bigger. Only one wire hookup. This is a USB-C hookup on this one, whereas this one had 2 pin connections that plug into it. The other end of the cable is still the same though. It's got a 2-pin connector and then this audio jack looking connector. All right, so now for the throttle bodies, the 400 was meant to support up to 400 horsepower, which is really over what most of our coaches are going to be running. The classic 550 can support up to 550 horsepower. But really power-wise, you're not going to see an improvement in performance with the classic 550 over the Go Street 400. That's not why we started going with this one. But if you do have a more built engine and more performance stuff, this one, the classic 550, can support a little bit more power. They're both set up for square bore. So they're going to have the same bolt pattern on the bottom. They do sit a little bit differently. You can see this one kind of sits wide to the side, and this one sits more long-wise. So this is the throttle brackets over on the side. Wiring-wise, you can kind of tell looking at this, the Go Street 400 has wires coming off it in pretty much all directions. So you've got, like your coolant temp sensor, and you've got your main plugins for the wiring. And then off to the back, you've got like your O2 sensor and then your pigtail for the controller. So they kind of go off in different directions, whereas the classic 550 just has this one harness that's all bundled. So if you're going for like a cleaner engine look, that's one thing about this. You can make it a little bit cleaner on top, but of course with our engines, typically you're only looking at them if you have a problem, so not really here for showing them off, but it is a little more clean and organized. Setup on these, I mean, both of them are pretty simple and self-explanatory as you go along. On the original ones, they didn't really label what things were, but it kind of just, you know, it's not like the plugs can go to a whole bunch of different sensors and stuff, so it's not terribly hard to set up. On the new one with the Classic 550, you have little label tags on it, which you could also, you know, take off obviously, but like CTS would be coolant temp sensor. And then as you go, you know, tack in, pretty much laid out where they would be on the engine anyways. So I like the thought that they put into the Classic 550. Whereas on this one, sometimes you had like wires bundling, you know, going backwards, and just wasn't as clean, but still a good setup either way. Some of the other things, the fuel inlet on this one is, I mean, it's basically in the same spot. If you look at where they would be, that's kind of the same orientation right there. This one's a little bit lower, but you know, not really a problem on that. On the Classic 550, they just got rid of the fuel return port. I believe you still can put a fuel return port on this, but pretty much everyone's going with the force fuel at this point. And when you run the force fuel with our coaches, you do not need the fuel return to come from the throttle body. If you have the Go Street 400, this normally would have come with a 6AN fitting on it that would be your fuel return. And then it comes with this plug, which is what we had put in here, so that if you run the force fuel, then you know that's already plugged off. Vacuum ports, let's see, you've got, you know, your smaller vacuum port and a couple of larger, you know, like 3/8 vacuum ports right here. And that's pretty much it on the original. On the Classic 550, you've got the two large ones in the back, and then you've got another large one up front and two of the smaller ones up front. So a couple more vacuum ports and just in kind of different locations. Whoops, dropped my O2 sensor. Another thing is the computer for the Go Street 400 is actually sitting behind this cover right here. And that's not the most ideal position in our opinion, because you have a lot of engine heat right there. So I don't know that that's ever been an actual problem, but you know, computers don't really like heat. So with the Classic 550, what they did is they have the computer mounted separately. And I like to mount this actually in the cabin under one of the seats, either the driver or the passenger seat. That's way it's completely out of the elements. You don't have to worry about like water and corrosion or anything, even though it's a waterproof connector. But then you also don't have to worry about heat and all that stuff. So that's something that I like about this setup. Also, you know, if you have computer issues or something, it's probably easier for them to send this to you than it is to send an entire throttle body. But, you know, I'm not sure if that's ever been an issue. Pretty much that covers all of the major differences that I can think of. Actually, there's one more. The bolt, the hold down bolt on the original was a 5/16 bolt, and on the Classic 550 they went to a 1/4-20. So that's one small thing, but other than that, I believe they're very close to the same height. Looks like the Classic 550 might be just ever so slightly shorter, but I'm not positive. Maybe, you know, less than ½ an inch if it is. But that's pretty much everything that I can tell difference-wise between these two throttle bodies. And tuning is going to be the same as well. All right, thank you.